Eric Schechter, also known as Shekels. Why do they call you Shekels?
Uh, you know, I know where the opportunity is and I follow it.
So tell us about that. You started a business that does what?
So the business I started is called GiddyUp. We started in 2013. So we're actually coming up on year 11 here, September 6th. So super close. And essentially what we do is we saw that the advertising model was broken 10 years ago even, where all of these amazing entrepreneurs, inventors, makers were trying to get their incredible products out to market. And the only way to do that was to work with big agencies and pay them a ton of money up front or spend a ton of money on these social channels with no guarantee of success. And as all of us know who are business owners, like when you're getting started, every dollar counts that you have when it comes to investing in the growth of your business. And we just thought that that was just a broken model, and that as marketers, we knew that with the right product and the right offer and the right funnel and everything that we could control, that we had a very good chance of success. And we also felt that the best way to build a business was to put your money where your mouth is and only get rewarded for the results that you produce. And so that was really kind of the ethos behind GiddyUp. So now when we work with a business owner, we will take that product. If we believe in it, we'll say yes to it, and we'll invest our own time and capital building out everything it needs to acquire customers online profitably. And the only time the brand ever pays us is for the sales that we generate. So it's a 100% performance only model. And we do this by helping them scale on every channel and to every market all over the world.
How much have you sold in products in these 10 years, a little over 10 years?
Last year we crossed over the 1.5 billion mark.
1.5 billion.
Yeah.
And is that always with you guys taking that risk up front? Is there any model within your business where it's different?
So, no, not really. We always take the model up front. We've never been paid a dollar that we didn't earn through performance. And the way our model works too is like so on one side, we have all these brands that make incredible products. On the other side, we have a network of some of the biggest marketers, publishers, influencers in the world who they also don't care about just making money for nothing. They see the bigger upside. So they'll spend their own money advertising these products on these different channels or making content, et cetera, and they'll get paid a commission every time something sells. And that's just when you're working with like people that really believe in what they're doing and they want the upside. It's like anyone who is a salesperson at heart, you want the biggest upside possible. You want the highest commission possible. You don't care about base salary because you know you're great at what you do. And you know that's how you're going to hit the financial goals that you have in mind for yourself. And so that's what we've built around us. So it's a pretty inspiring group of people that we get to work with every single day.
You're absolutely right. In my 20s, that's the last time I had a job for somebody. It was at a cruise line where you worked at as well. Not at the same time. We didn't cross paths there. But it was interesting. They changed the model for commission, and that's what I was on. And they lowered the base and increased the commission. So guys like me who hustled and worked 10 hours a day, put that headset on and just dialed 150 to $200 a day, we were excited for that sort of scenario. And guess who quit? The ones who just wanted a steady paycheck. So I like what you're doing and what you've been doing because it's real life. That's how the world works, right? Otherwise, what I find is that a lot of marketing agencies are churning clients constantly because they make them a big promise up front and then it just doesn't work out, right? And then everybody blames everybody. Everybody says my marketing agency sucks. And the marketing agency always says, this guy, they just didn't get it. They weren't willing to invest enough. Is that what you see out there?
Yeah, 100%. I just think that the incentives are misaligned in traditional advertising, where in most cases now, especially, I mostly focus on the e-commerce side. And when you're working with like a paid ad agency, and you know this, you've done this for your brands in the past, usually their model is, yeah, you're paying a retainer of some sort to make a bunch of creatives or marketing, but then you're paying them a percentage of ad spend, which is just a weird model in the sense that they're incentivized to get you to pay more, like spend more on advertising, not be more profitable. And so that's always been something that I felt was broken. And I think it just, when you have misaligned incentives, it can create, a a bad working relationship, just in general, or in any relationship that we have, whether it's personal or business. I think being on the same page, having the same goals, being motivated by the things that are driving the most value for each other, that's where the real opportunity is. And I think that's where the real value sits.
Yeah, and you wake up feeling better in the morning. Something that I learned sitting in my first EOS meeting years ago is the Entrepreneur Operating System, I think is what the traction book, was that all arrows should be aligned in an organization. And they literally painted them. They painted all kinds of arrows on a whiteboard going in all directions, saying these are all the different people in your organization, different departments. You got to get them all going in the same direction. So what you're doing, man, you're creating valuable partnerships. Speaking of partners, tell us about your partners and how that came about, how you founded this.
Yeah. Well, I always say that every opportunity that I had throughout my life kind of led to the next one pretty organically. I've been very lucky in the sense that every job I've ever had, I actually really enjoyed, and it made a mark on my career in a unique way, whether that was meeting somebody or teaching me a pretty important lesson. I won't go all the way back, I guess, but I'll go to the point where, I studied marketing. I've been a marketer since I can remember. I used to do it for the band that I was in back in 2000, what now, 2003, 2004 in college at UCF.
Did you sing or play guitar or drums? What?
I played drums. I played
Awesome.
so and that's where I really like found the love of marketing and sales, to be honest. I was using it to book gigs and sell CDs at the time, so definitely hustling, and it wasn't easy. People didn't really know who we were, and so we got a lot of no's. And thankfully, I was a pretty persistent kid back then. I attribute a lot of that to the lessons that my dad taught me, one of them being this principle that every no brings you one step closer to a yes. It just always really resonated with me in a deep way. And so what I found was when I was going around trying to book all these gigs, I was getting a lot of no's, but I started craving it. And I started really enjoying and figuring out, how is I going to change my pitch? How is I going to change my positioning in order to get them to give us a chance and say yes to us? And so I really fell in love with that. I ultimately knew that I wasn't going to be a rock star, though. We weren't great, but we were having a lot of fun. And I found myself wanting to stay in that industry and potentially go in and become like an executive at a big like record label like Sony or Capitol. So I ended up, again, finishing my marketing degree, getting getting an internship at a record label, and really just found myself in heaven, like loving promoting artists. Like this was my first time being able to use the power of social media with MySpace and connecting artists to these individual fans all over the country who we would basically get them to be like this, we would call them a street team. So we would get them to call all of these record stores and ask for the record in the store, call up all the radio stations. They were kind of our distributed workforce. And it was amazing just how powerful it was. And I just really saw the power of social media. And so that was where I met my first co-founder, Topher Grant, incredibly brilliant dude who had dropped out of school to start this record label. And so we just formed a really good friendship. It ended up not working because I entered the music industry at the very wrong time. This was like when Napster was coming out in digital music, and basically the whole industry was like on fire. So ended up having to get a new dream essentially. And I ended up working and doing some entrepreneurial stuff in social media agencies and did some cool stuff there. And ended up getting recruited to a performance marketing company out in Sarasota that was the fifth fastest growing company back in 2008. So during the whole financial crisis, this company was killing it. They did like almost $100 million that year. And it was the first time being around this fast growing startup, super exciting. And that's where I met my second co-founder, Todd Armstrong, who was a sales executive over there. And it was also where I really discovered the model that would then later inspire GiddyUp. So they were doing a very similar thing, but what I found out as I stayed at the company a little bit longer is that this was like the Wild West back then. And when I found that the products, like what products they were selling and how they were willing to market or let their partners market in a way that I was never comfortable with, I decided to leave because it was just not something that aligned with my core values. But I always loved the model. This idea of people paying only on performance, this more decentralized advertising ecosystem that I never even thought of or knew existed. So I left. I ended up going to Carnival, which was an incredible experience. It was there that I learned about like all the corporate stuff, um, but also trying to be entrepreneurial. So it's funny that you mentioned that about when they lowered the commission, because I remember like I was trying to be very entrepreneurial. I actually saw like a big opportunity to stay at Carnival. It was a great job. I was traveling all over the world shooting content. And I remember I was trying to figure out like I got hired making like 50 grand a year, which was okay, but I wasn't like covering my bills. I was, not happy. I wanted to get to the six-figure mark. And I remember going in and trying to find the opportunity, the shekels, mentality. And I found this tool the social media tool that we were spending like, I think it was like 15 grand a month in. And we were paying this agency to create a report for us, another like 10 grand. It's like 25 grand a month.
Wow.
And I'm like, this report sucks. Like, it's not even adding any value to us. And I go to my boss and I said, hey, we're already paying for this tool. What if I could create a report, make it much more valuable, and I'll take half of that. I'll just take an extra 10 grand a month. And they basically just said no. They're like, it's a different budget. We can't allocate that. You can't just get a 10 grand a month raise. And so very similarly, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to build a career there. So I left. But that entire time, I was always thinking about the performance marketing model. And Todd and I, who I met at the company in Sarasota, we became roommates and we were always brainstorming. And really the idea said, like, what if we brought this model to products and brands that actually added value to people's lives? The things that like when your wife, Joel, who you told me, sees an ad on Facebook for a product that we sell and she buys it, that I feel great about that because she's going to have a great experience and it's going to help her. And honestly, the idea just took off from the beginning. We ended up doing, 3 million our first year and just double digit, 3, 4x growth from there. And I think it was just about this thing. We were in the right place at the right time. I definitely owe a lot of it to the luck, to the blessings of being around great partners. But we worked our ass off and we made the most of the opportunity. And I think that it was really about also never compromising our values for the money. Because at the time, like even today, there's so much opportunity to make so much money if you don't care about the product that you're selling. And that was just never something that I was comfortable with. And thankfully, my partners were never comfortable with either. It was never even a discussion. And so we've always just played the long game, and it's brought us to where we are today. And I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, I prefer the long day every day. I prefer to get rich slowly than get rich quickly, especially when you don't feel good about what you're doing. How old are you, Eric?
I'll be 39 in 8 days.
Wow, okay. All right. You feel like you've accomplished a good amount in these 38 years, almost 39?
Yeah, I do.
Hope so.
I do. I have bigger goals and things that I still want to accomplish, but I've been through a lot. I've had my chin is starting to get gray. Definitely a lot of wisdom that I've been able to take, and yeah, it's been a good life. I have nothing to complain about.
Great. And all this before you're even 40, before you're 39. So tell us about, I want to hear what more you want to accomplish, not just in business, though. I know you love life and your wife and your daughter. So tell us all the way around. What more things do you want to accomplish?
Well, I'll start with the things that are most important to me, which is family. I just had a baby girl. She's 16 months old and amazing. And my focus is how to be the best father possible to her. And I want to grow a little tribe. Like when I come over to your house and I see you have, you know, all these kids who love you and look up to you. And it's an incredible feeling. We're starting a little bit late, but I still think, thankfully I married a Latina woman. And so I think we still have some opportunity to get some little kids out there.
Good.
But to grow the family and to be the best example possible in every way that I can in raising them. And so that's just been a big focus. But honestly, what's above and beyond that is the relationship that I have with my wife. So I've just been very focused on how do we grow together? How do we make sure we're not getting complacent? How do we experience the world in a way that fulfills on her dreams and my dreams and our dreams?
And
Plan
are you going
ahead.
in the right path there, you think?
I believe so. Yeah, we are now. So one of the things that I think got off track, and this goes into the other areas, like last year. So we were married 2 years ago, and then we had our daughter about a year and a half ago. And then last November, we had a bunch of family. We just moved out to Raleigh, North Carolina, had a lot of family over for Thanksgiving and staying with us for 2 weeks, had a blast. And, we took a lot of pictures and videos and all that good stuff. And I ended up watching some of it. And honestly, I was just disgusted with the way that I looked. I'd never felt that way before, like that intense of a feeling. And so many things just like went through my head in regards to number one, I hated it. I hated that I let myself get there. And it was weird because like I knew I was gaining weight, but it's not until you see yourself like
From someone else's eyes?
especially on video, like even images, like it wasn't as visceral to me, but on video I could really see it. And yeah, apart from being disappointed in myself, I just felt like I was letting everybody around me down. Like I've always had this belief that like I can't expect my wife to stay in love with me or to want to be around me all the time or to grow old if I've shown that I don't love myself or I've not put in the work to take care of myself. And I think a lot of that is shown through your health and your physique and the things that you can control to a big degree. And so that was like a big piece of it. And then I'm looking at my daughter and I'm like, is this the man that I want her to look up to? Is this what I want her to say is like my inspiration, my idol? Like I want her to see me in the best shape of my life. I want her to see me exercising and all these habits that I care about. Like I have someone that's looking at me to model off of. And the last thing ever that I want to do is to be weak and to not be the greatest source of inspiration for her.
Yeah, I think that's important because the way she sees you, first of all, that has an impact on the relationship that you guys will have. If she sees that you're a guy who takes care of himself and is always doing well, I think it'll make a child more likely to listen to us and take our guidance later when she's older,
Yeah.
right? Because if she sees you this loser sitting on the couch, not that you were, but with a big beer belly and drinking beer all day and doing nothing and closing down to the world, she's not going to listen to you and build a relationship.
Honestly, I think too, like you could go to that extreme, but even in the sense that I think I know a lot of business people that are very successful. And let's say even if you have 10, $20 million in the bank, but you let yourself go physically, I think that's a major problem. I think some guys think that just because they have money in the bank account that they're now that, they're at that level for their family where, they look up to them and all this good stuff. And it's just not enough. You have to be in shape. You have to be modeling habits that show that you're the leader of the household and that you're there to protect your family, and be there for your family. And I think it's easy to get complacent when you are working on your business all the time and you're fueled by money, but it's really not the stuff that matters. Like I truly believe even if I had no money, but I was enacting the right habits, then me and my wife would have the happiest life ever, as opposed
Yeah.
to the opposite. If I just became a slob that was rich, it never would last. And my daughter would probably hate me or end up, who knows? Like
Yeah.
I don't think it would end well. So
Speaking of that, so I know that you work on yourself a lot, your health, growth, doing things to help, you become a better man for yourself, for your family. But you also are a smart guy who knows how to make money and you like building and you have a business. When do you think there's a day where you're going to say, okay, we've built this thing so big and I'm never going to need any money, either where you step down or you guys sell the business or you sell your shares? Do you see that in the future?
I definitely see that opportunity in the future to be able to do that. I think the best time to prepare for an exit is when you don't have that in mind, for the most part, is like always being ready. Um, I have a big ambition to, again, be a family man. I think I'll always want to do something. The question is, do I want to grind as hard as I am to building something massive? Right now, it's this push and pull a little bit. On one hand, I'm in a very fortunate position that I'm in a business that has grown pretty quickly and massively and has the opportunity to be a once in a generation type of opportunity if we were to pursue that in the right way. Um, and not many people get that opportunity, even if you're a great business owner, and not everybody wants that, and I struggle with that sometimes too, of like, how big do I want this to be, or how much do I want it to be? But I also have this opportunity to be great. And so it's always battling those internal struggles of like, do I pursue this? Do I, dedicate my time and energy to this? And that also, it requires a lot, it requires a lot of energy and it's a battle to some degree of like all the energy and output that I want to put into my family. So yes, it's potentially in the future. Not thinking about it right now. Again, like for me, it's always about focusing on the habits and the things that are going to be um, the biggest drivers to being valuable in general, whether that's like personally or through the business. And if that opportunity shows and it's the right thing, I'm not afraid to pull the trigger on that or to step down, especially if it ever comes close to impeding my health or my time with my family. Because at the end of the day, like I actually have to be number one in the sense that, like, when you get married, I don't know if you've heard this, like a lot of people are like, oh, you got to put all your time and energy into the kids and they're the most important. And I just don't believe that. I feel like I need to be the most important because if I'm not taking care of myself, my health being of the utmost importance, how am I going to be a great husband? How am I going to be a great father? And then if I'm not taking care of the relationship I have with my wife, how are we going to be great parents? And then so that's kind of the hierarchy that I've always lived by is that you have to start with yourself. And that's an area that I haven't been great at throughout my life. I gotten much better at it over the last 10 years by being forced into it by getting pretty sick, which we can chat about. But that's why I saw it as such a big blessing because it really forced me to gain new perspective about what's important and
Share
where
that.
to invest my
What'd you get
time.
sick with?
So in college, I ended up getting diagnosed with something called Crohn's disease. And this is basically where it's autoimmune. So your body thinks there's something wrong and it starts attacking your intestines. And so you get massive inflammation in your stomach. And so I ended up I found it, I healed it I fixed it with a Band-Aid of medicine at the time, didn't change any of my habits. I was in college, I was drinking a few times a week at least, eating pizza at 3 a.m., like just going hard, but I felt good. So I was like, oh, it's fine until the point that I didn't. Started getting stomach aches and realized that the medicine I was taking stopped working. And right now, like I'm a tall dude, I'm almost 6'3". I weigh 196. Just weighed myself this morning.
Nice.
I ended up getting down to 150 pounds.
Whoa.
I
At
looked
six
like I
foot three,
was, yeah. So I looked like I was dying. Like I remember sitting on a chair and I just couldn't even sit on the chair because it was painful,
you were dying.
I was dying, yeah. And I ended up having to have surgery. They had to like cut that piece out of like I ended up getting a mass of like so like when you get a lot of inflammation somewhere, it could turn into massive amount of scar tissue. And so that's what happened inside my intestine. They had to like basically cut that part out and like retie it all together. And I just realized at that point that medicine was not the answer for me. That in order to make a big change and to not risk my life, that I was going to have to change my habits dramatically. And so the doctors were trying to get me back on medicine, and I just refused because I knew that if I got on medicine, it was going to be a crutch
Yeah.
and I would never change my lifestyle. And sometimes I have to put myself in that position to actually make the change. So, against my doctor's orders and my parents, who were mostly just scared for me and wanted me to make sure I was okay, I said no. And I read every book I could about autoimmune, diets and ways to eat. And I basically found this diet or this way of eating called the specific carbohydrate diet. And it's probably the most intense diet you've ever seen. Like you can't eat out at all. Everything has to be super clean, made at home. And it's kind of like paleo, but on steroids. So essentially no gluten, no dairy, no refined sugar, no grains, and a bunch of other things. Uh, and I did that, and it would just change my life. I ended up gaining weight again. I felt great, and got to the point where I felt so great, I gained like way too much weight. I ended up like in November when I was talking about it, I was at 235. So been one extreme to the other. But yeah, when I was sick, like it was probably the biggest blessing in my life. I think when I first heard about it, you get to everyone goes to, for the most part, this stage of like victim mentality, like, why me? I was a college kid. I thought my life was over. I had to make all these changes. I had to sit around an Italian restaurant while my family and friends ate bread and pasta and like just
You had a
all
salad?
that stuff. Yeah. But now, like, I could just sit there and not care about any of it. And I always look back and say, man, like, if I didn't have that happen to me, what's the bigger, worst thing that might have happened? Like, you think about things that are like extremely bad, like cancer, any of these like crazy things, like my body was actually helping me and telling me, look, you have to wake up, you have to take care of yourself to prevent these worse things from happening in the future so you can live your life to the fullest potential. And so
You
that's
know,
how I
my
look at it.
my daughter has celiac disease, so she doesn't eat gluten. And it's hard to convince her at this age, but I tell her, this is why you are so healthy. You're not out there eating all this bread and pizza and all this stuff. You're eating meat, you're eating vegetables, you're eating very healthy food, more than your brothers, because they can get away with it.
Yeah.
So you're right when you look at it that way. So what was it? Because look, there's a lot of people who battle through eating bad, drinking. What was it? How do you have any words of encouragement, advice? How could someone just stop eating bad? Maybe they don't have Crohn's and they don't have a legit problem with a name on it, but they're overweight, they're unhealthy, their inflammation, their levels are high. How can they start breaking that?
Well, the thing that worked for me is I like to set myself up for success in the sense that I know who I am and what my habits are and like where my weaknesses are. So when I was overweight and like 230 something pounds and I knew that I needed to drop it, I invested in a trainer who was also a nutritionist, knowing that I'm going to meet with this woman at least 3 times a week, no matter what, and she's going to wait for me, and I can't cancel because she's there waiting for me, you know?
Hmm.
So like that was a big piece of it was like for me, I've always seen trainers and nutritionists and anyone in the health side, whether it's mind or body or spirit, it's an investment, just like we invest in the stock market or, in real estate or whatever. There's nothing more important from an investment standpoint than to our bodies. So when I think about like, man, I'm spending a lot of money on this. All right, well, that's because I want to live a long, healthy life, right? So I did that. And the thing on the eating side, well, number one, I mean, it's crazy how much sugar most people eat and they don't even realize it. So
Because
like
it's snuck in. They
it
sneak
snuck
it.
in. So before I got sick, I never used to look at ingredients. And now I look at every ingredient and I eat the simplest things possible. But like, you go to Whole Foods and you think that like the hot bar, it's just chicken breast. Literally, it's just chicken breast in a pan. But look at the ingredient and there's sugar inside the chicken
Mm.
breast. It's crazy. It's everywhere. But even outside of that, most people are drinking soda and eating, dessert, all this other stuff. Even if you were to just give up sugar, I think people would, for a period of time, you would drop a ton of weight. That and walking everywhere. Walking is like the thing that's like the secret sauce that you don't have to like run. You don't have to walk fast. You just have to get your steps in and you'll start dropping weight. But for me, just to get back to it, the game changer for me was actually following macros. So I learned about this from a friend who got in really good shape. And essentially it's, focusing on, it kind of backs out to calories, but you're feeding your body a certain amount of protein, fat, and carbohydrates every single day in order to maximize the amount of calories that you're burning. And what's cool about it is you do have to weigh or scan your food. So there is an element of work to it.
Yeah.
But what I like about it in the beginning is that you're not like forced to a diet. You can actually still eat pretty much anything you want, but you have to stay within the confines of X grams of protein, X grams of fat, X grams of carbs.
So how many carbs do you eat in a day?
So carbs, I eat around 180
Oh, quite a bit.
grams. Yeah. And then
And you,
protein like 210. So I'm eating about 2,300 calories a day, which is more than I've ever eaten. And
and
that's
yet
actually,
you've lost 40 pounds in the last 8 months or nine.
yeah, and it's gone up a little bit, but that's what I actually realized was sometimes we think that in order to lose weight, you actually have to reduce how much you eat. And it's actually completely incorrect. You have to be eating the right amounts of the right things to actually lose weight. And usually it's more. And what I found, at least for myself and others that I've talked to, is people don't eat nearly enough protein as they should be.
That's right.
And it's one of the hardest things to consume because it's
It's so
so
filling.
it's yeah, and it's filling, and it's not even just meat. I mean, there's protein in everything, but yeah, it's pretty hard to like. That was the hardest part actually, was when I got into with a nutritionist, was changing how much I actually had to eat every day. And you have to be very methodical. You can't wait till the end of the day to track everything and to do it. You
Yeah.
actually do it throughout the day. But the reason why I like it is it gamifies the whole experience for me. So like I have like, all right, I have X amount of points. And I think this is why like Weight Watchers does this, I think to some degree. They don't call it
Yeah.
macros, but I remember my mom used to always come back, I got 10 points, I
Yeah.
got
Where do I consume it? You got to make
yeah.
that
And so it
choice.
kind of gives you that level of freedom and gamification. And if you like that, you cannot necessarily have to change all of what you're eating. But yeah, if you eat a chocolate bar, you're pretty much going to take on all of your fat for the entire day. So you're not going to be able to eat
You
pretty much.
definitely all your carbs. You're hitting a lot of carbs there. So
Yeah.
what? Take a guess. A year ago or two, when you weren't as healthy, because now you're looking great. What were you consuming by way of carbohydrates in a day? Just take a guess.
Um, Probably over 300.
Wow, that's quite a bit. So you've cut that probably in half,
Yeah.
and stacked protein in there.
Yeah, and
That's
honestly, I was eating healthy though before because of my gut, right? So I was actually eating healthy. I wasn't eating processed foods. I was just eating a lot of like I would come home and just crave like a apple with like peanut butter all over. It was natural peanut butter.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there's so much fat in peanut butter. Like because when I used to try to gain weight from being really sick, I would eat a whole jar of peanut butter. Like it was just so bad. And that's the hard, you like think you're eating well, but without tracking anything, that's where you
Also,
start in
peanuts
trouble.
are they can lead to inflammation. My natural
Totally.
doctor
Yeah, it was
told me.
cashew butter at the time, actually, which
Ah,
is
okay.
also probably not even as good. But yeah, that's the other thing is like certain things that seem healthy, it's all in moderation. But I had it easier, or I feel like I've had it easier because I had to change my lifestyle from when I was sick. But still, I would just consume without eating. I would go to a Mexican restaurant and just eat a bunch of tacos with chips and salsa and guacamole and all that. It wasn't as bad as this person eating an entire pie of pizza,
Right.
but if you're trying to lose weight or gain muscle or what have you, it was going against those
And the
goals.
difference, really, what it comes down to is, for starters, how do you feel now compared to how you felt
Incredible,
before?
incredible. I have
Energy?
so much more energy. I feel like just my main goal was to like mostly be able to walk through everyday life and be able to do anything that my daughter or my wife needs me to do or that I want to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
so we just got a massive box of stuff like delivered from Amazon where I would usually probably need some help or worry about my back. I just lifted it, brought it up the stairs to the attic. Wife was looking at me, super impressed, and it felt good, like I just like being able to know that I can take care of myself and my family with the way that I am. And it just gives me a lot more clarity and energy for work, which again, like now that I've had a child, I just have to be way more conscious about how much time I'm putting into each of these other areas that are important to me. In the past, like when you're young and you're grinding, you're willing to put every ounce of effort
Yep.
into work. And now I need to be very intentional with like, I want to spend this type of time with my daughter. So how am I going to do that? And when am I going to fit that in? How am I going to do this with my wife? How am I going to do this with my health? And then saying, okay, do I have enough capacity to make sure I'm dominating on the business side? And that just makes you, it forces you to be a lot more structured. And I think that's hard if you're not in a good physical and mental health space.
Yeah. You're
Everything sort
working
of
through some
feeds in
fog. How are
together.
you going to do that?
Yeah. And so that's been really important for me too, is like, the mind and taking care of my mental health through, you know, meditation, and just the gym helps a lot with it. Like for me, I don't always know when I'm super stressed. I'm not in my head a lot. A lot of people are always thinking about their problems, always in their head, like, oh my God, what about this and that, like anxiety and all that. I don't actually have that. And while it may seem like a blessing,
Yeah.
actually don't always know when I'm super stressed. And I can't see inside of my gut. And so my gut, and your gut is like your second brain, and
Yeah.
it can get very inflamed quickly. And so I have to be very proactive in terms of managing stress, because for me, I don't feel it until it's too late and I'm overwhelmed. And so that's why I've taken you know, put such a focus on, I guess, like proactively with my physicality, with like meditation, all that stuff, because I have to be extra careful of taking, the proper steps to make sure that I'm in a good place.
If you had a bad marriage, then you probably wouldn't worry about, am I working too much? Because that might be a place that people can go hide to.
Distraction.
Yeah, I happen to know you have a great marriage. So you want to be around, right? You want to be with your wife. You want to go be with your daughter and be together and go on trips and just be there for all those things. So I think that's, if someone is ever working on that balance in their life, maybe the starting point would be to make sure you're working on the marriage like you do, so that you want to be home, and then you'll find the way, right, to do
But it does
that.
start with yourself, right? Again, I feel like if you're not focused on yourself first, if you're not taking care of your mental health and your physical health and all that stuff, I just don't know if a happy marriage is possible. Would you
Yeah.
agree? Like
Oh,
you've lived it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I heard a kid in the current class that we're doing in the 31 days right now for men. He's very smart. He's not even 25. And I asked him, how come you don't have a girlfriend? And he said, I have to still do some work on myself before I get her, because otherwise I'm going to be attracting some things in my life that I don't want. The great perspective at 25 years old to look at himself and say, I'm not where I want to be. And today's version of me attracts someone not as good. So think about all the people in bad relationships. My wife, Jessica, convinced me to join some Facebook groups so I can see what men are going through, because I work with men. And man, it's nonstop all day. Whenever I look at it, I see all their negative comments about their life situation. And it's all because, well, I've got 3 kids with 3 different women, and now I'm with a new woman, and she's got 4 kids with all these different guys, and life isn't good, and we're not working out so well. Yeah, but look at did you work on yourself? How did you treat your spouse? Yeah, I agree. Work on yourself. And so my hierarchy is similar to yours. First, you have to take care of yourself. That's number one. And then for me, my next favorite person in the world is my wife. And then right behind her are all 4 of my kids. We spoke about this last night, her and I. I asked
Okay.
her, I said, where do I fall in the order? And she says, yeah, you're still at the top. Because we didn't have any kids. If it wasn't for each other, we wouldn't have any kids. They come next after us. So
Well, at
yeah,
some point, right, those kids are going to be gone. And then what?
yeah,
I feel like so many of the people around, like in my life that I, was around, they put so much energy and focus on the kids, and they lost that relationship both with themselves and their partner. And then the kids leave and they realize they just drifted
nothing.
completely
Your,
apart.
your roommates that don't have much things in common, and the one thing you had in common were the kids, and they're gone. So now you have nothing. So I'm at a much closer age than you to start seeing that in people that we know. And the kids are now heading off to college, and who knows what's going to happen with those folks if they're not really, really good friends. Yeah, to me, it's so important. It doesn't even come close for me personally how much my wife is my best friend. And it's not that I go do all the things she wants to do. I'm not going to go do girl stuff. I have convinced her to come along and do some of the things I do, jujitsu and other things. So that's worked out really well. One thing that I think, tell me your thoughts on this, because you and I have texted over the last few months about your health journey and that you've been on recently this last year. And I always say that it's good to have an end line. And it's not that you're going to stop, because then there's another finish line and another one. But one that might be working for you, I hope, is we're going to have our Brotherhood retreat in late October here in South Florida, and you're going to be here with 25 guys.
Yeah.
Has that helped you to, because I've gone around asking everybody, what are your goals? What are you going to hit by the time that day comes? Has that helped?
Man, it's helped a ton. I just like always am thinking, all right, I'm going to show up around all these people that are super fit and that I threw my goals out there. And I don't want to be the guy to go there and just look like I didn't give a shit and failed completely. So it's definitely been a great driver. And obviously having a deadline is always helpful, especially for me who can be a procrastinator at times. But again, knowing myself, when you asked for goals, I think I was one of the first people to throw my goals out
Yep,
there.
you were.
And so I'm pretty close to a lot of them. Some of them I already surpassed. Like I wanted to be under 200 pounds. I'm already under 200 pounds. I wanted to, I have a handful of things. But yeah, one of them is like weight, body fat, number of pull-ups,
Strength.
benching a certain weight
Yep.
as well, that kind of stuff. And it's been good. It's been fun training towards that. My trainer loves helping me hit those goals as well. And I'm just showing up every day and just working hard. And I'm excited to just spend the time with the guys in the Brotherhood because they're an elite group of men who are very inspiring, and you don't want to let each other down, in that
Yeah.
way.
And one of the pillars is accountability. If you
Yeah,
show up with a gut, hey, I'm not going to criticize you because I want to. I'm going to do it because you wrote these goals. And I have to say, Eric, look, you said these things. What's going on?
yeah.
Or the other side is, dude, you wrote all these things and look at you. You're hitting all these things. That's an amazing feeling. I
Yeah.
think it's
And I
important to
just
have
thrive
accountability.
with accountability. And I've been able to we actually have like this little side group in the Brotherhood with like 4 or 5 people that are focused on showing up to the retreat with a six pack. And so we've had this sort of sidebar accountability and even a bet. So just like again, playing into what we know is going to motivate us. So that's been fun. It'll be interesting to see what happens in 2 months.
I love that. One of the guys who's going to be at the retreat yesterday, he's retaking one of the 31-day class, 31 days to become a better man. And he's taking that class again. And he's in his 50s. And he said yesterday, I found a new way to make $50 a day. And I think I'm going to hit it most days. And he said he's going to go up to guys around his age and say, hey, I'm just trying to get into push-ups. Do you want to do a $50 bet? See which one of us can do the most push-ups? Because he's getting really close to hitting 50 in a row. And he's well into his 50s. That's pretty good. He said, I think I'll win 75% of those bets. I'll be up. So it's a good incentive to do that outside of the
And I was
circle.
gonna say now, like we, now we're planning a trip to Bolivia in May, and so again, another great endpoint to something to get motivated by even more and train in a much different way from a conditioning standpoint, which I focused on, but not as hard as everything else. And so that's the power of being around a group of people that constantly want to push themselves, that want to be the best version, that want to adventure, and that are successful in doing something in their lives that are inspirational and that you can learn a lot from. And so these things never stop,
Yeah,
and so
that's right.
it's always another thing to push towards. And
Yeah.
obviously meeting in person and doing it together is just a really cool way to go about it.
Absolutely. And that's a brotherhood trip. We're 10 of us. Put it out there, and in a week, all the spots were taken. We're going to, I hope I pronounce it right. I can pronounce it when I see it. I think it's Huayna Potosi. It's
Yeah.
one of the tallest peaks in the Andes in South America. So we're going down there in April. And yeah, I've thought about all that. I've got my things that I want to hit. I want to do a jiu-jitsu tournament, but I've also got a hunt coming up. But before all that, I have the retreat, and then there's the climbing. But it's awesome. These are good problems to have. It's like,
Yeah.
look, I got to be ready to be able to hike mountains. For that, our hike, we're going to go up. But for hunting with another guy in the Brotherhood, Chris Williams, going out to Idaho to hunt an elk. And I have to start, and I'm doing it. I'm taking heavy weight. I'm going to a hill nearby, and I'm walking kind of sideways to make sure that my ankles are getting strong. So imagine it's hard to worry about things in our head or a lot of dumb problems when we got like real problems ahead of us. I was listening to a podcast of someone this weekend, and they said that they had a lot of problems in their head, and they started solving them when they did really hard things. And his was exaggeratedly hard, like sticking himself underwater at 32-degree water, but not, not just sitting in a tub. That's hard to do. But he would just hold himself under for a long time. Really dangerous stuff, potentially. But he said that cured a lot of his problems. And I think that got me thinking that humans have had it way too easy. We have air conditioning, we have heating, we have the temperature we want in our coffee, and we have everything. You want information, you don't even have to go to the corner and buy a newspaper. It's on your phone, right? So that leads to us having to worry about stupid things. But now, when we have these physical challenges ahead of us, like you've got now with a few of these, and I'm glad to be doing a couple of them with you, I think that's helpful. All right. If you, Eric, exit your company, you sell it one day, you got a ton of money in the bank, what would you be doing? Do you have any idea of what's next? Because you said you want to do something. What would you do?
To start, I'd probably take a little bit of time off and just be with my family for a while. I would definitely want to be able to travel with them and spend a lot of time with them and I don't know, focus on myself. So I have so many personal passions and things that I care about and want to get better at. I would probably be focused on that as well as like helping my family achieve theirs. So like I want to get back into music. That's an area that I would love to experience again, which is just playing drums and guitar and possibly even start playing live shows again because I feel like it hits like this like inherent desire to I don't know, the rush that you get on stage when you're in front of hundreds or thousands of people just feels amazing but nothing unites people more in a way than I've seen than music and live music. And it's just a really cool vibe to be a part of. So that's an area that I'm still interested in from a hobby perspective. Getting better. I want to start, getting into some different sports again and stuff like that. I started doing swimming and like just I want to get good at a lot of things that I've like put off a little bit in focusing on my business side. I think that mentorship is something that I'm very interested in. So focusing on working with kids and people growing up that maybe are in a bad situation and figuring out how I can help them, you know, have the right mindset and grow up to be as strong and successful as possible, doing what they love and building the right habits. I think I've learned a lot based on what I've been through. And so I've always loved kids. And obviously I want to do that through my own kids, but I feel like one of the biggest ways I can help make a difference in the world is to impact the next generation. And so that's something that's always just been on my mind. I don't know the best way I'll do that yet, but starting with some of these organizations that I've seen in getting involved with, teenagers or kids that are younger that are either going through a tough time or trying to figure themselves out, just being a good kind of big brother and guiding them in the right way. And then on the business side, I don't know, man. I probably want to do something completely different than what I'm doing now, which is building a tech company. It's rewarding, but it's a beast and a thing that I feel like I would have conquered. I'm interested in potentially more of like physical businesses to some degree. So, whether it's like the boring business types or figuring out how to like adapt these old types of businesses to the modern age or stuff like that. I don't know, is interesting to me to some degree. Uh, but yeah, I haven't spent too much time honestly figuring that out right now. I'm pretty focused on, the personal goals and the family stuff and all of that. But it would be mostly around, how can I impact the next generation? How do I help the world live a little better through the experience and wisdom that I've been able to gain over the
Yeah,
last
well, I can tell
decade?
you, being a big brother is pretty cool. I've done that with that organization, and it's not a massive commitment. You contact a local big brother organization, they do some background tests, and then you get introduced and you take them out to play and you talk to them. Because in my case, the one that I worked with, he didn't have a dad, and so I became kind of like a dad to him. And I was young. I think I was 19, but he was maybe 10, and that was pretty cool because I didn't have a little brother. Right. So I thought that was a neat experience. I highly recommend doing that. And it's not like we have to cross the bridge of selling our company or do something massive to do it.
Totally.
It's like it could be once a month. Like you go on a kid date for once a month, you take
Yeah.
them to Chuck E. Cheese and whatever, and it's pretty neat. And just the impact I hope that that makes, because that kid, maybe you do that for a few years and then you lose touch. Although nowadays nobody loses touch because there's social media and all that. But that kid will always remember the impact that, man, I went out and we had fun and he talked to me, he gave me advice. And the way, here's a big one, the way he carried himself. I saw the way he ate. He had me do push-ups with him. He had me do these good things. I saw how he opened doors for other people, especially for ladies. And that has an impact on a kid that otherwise wouldn't have done it. Another one is, this is a big commitment, much bigger. But I recently interviewed Josh Cox. He's in the Brotherhood, and he has fostered, him and his wife, Claire, I believe it's over 150 kids that they
Wow.
fostered, and they've adopted six. They're really giving back to this world in an incredible way. It's a big commitment to do that. Fostering could be temporary and it could turn into a few years. Who knows what it is? But I asked them how we could help people. How could we help in that vein? And he said, look, if the lowest committal way of helping, but it helps, is to reach out to foster families. They're struggling. They get paid $15 a day to support this kid, buy them formula. I mean, everything. And they're the type of people that want to give and they never ask for help. So there's a lot of options that we could help people without
Yeah.
waiting till we get to a certain point. And I'm not preaching to you because I was the same. I mean, that's how I was. I had to put my head down and I worked, and I failed to work on myself some of those years because
Yeah.
when you're working 100 hours a week, it's a little hard to do that. But
Yeah,
I
and I
think
always just wish that like I had someone to help teach me some of these lessons that have been through it before. And I just feel like that's how we can make such a big impact is like this next generation, like to your point, not only is it easy now to be lazy, but what about when you throw on a headset and you don't even have to go visit people anymore? I could
exactly
just see you in person in my living room with you being in Florida and me. Like it's scary in terms of what could be,
yeah,
and I think that getting with kids early and whether it's through like my wife and I have talked about like what does a school look like, even if it's small, that we can impact, kids with in a way of like not losing sight of what's important and how to get in touch with nature and all the things that I think are critical to living a fulfilling life. Like these kids in the majority are not experiencing that unless they have that inspiration at home, and not many of them do. And
right.
so I don't know, the world is going to change a lot over the next 20 years, and we want to figure out how we can help maintain some of these important values and things that I think are critical for happiness. And hopefully we see a shift in the other direction. Like it's nice to see more people, I think men getting more focused on providing and, getting in shape. It's slow, but I feel like there is like the pendulum is starting to move more so than I've seen in the past. And
Yeah.
obviously like, things like the brotherhood are really helping drive that, which is super
Yeah, it's
powerful.
being intentional. I wonder the same thing if there's going to be a swing in the other direction where people go, okay, I haven't looked at anybody in the eyes in a week. All I've done is look down at this thing. I'm sick of it. I just want to get out, right? So you hope one day there'll be an awakening. Maybe we have to hit rock bottom for that to really take effect. We'll see.
Yeah.
Who knows? All right, Eric Schechter, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I will see you when you come down here for our retreat. Thanks for sharing. Where could people learn more about you or your business?
LinkedIn is probably the best. So it's just LinkedIn with my name, Eric
Yep.
Schechter.
Yep.
So
And you guys will hear about this guy one day. I'm sure there's going to be you're either going to be speaking on stages or writing a book or doing something because what you've built is phenomenal and you're still only 38 years old. You got a long way of continue to build whatever you want. Yeah.
thank you, brother.
All right, man. Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks, Eric.